All right. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. We have everybody muted, cuts down on a lot of background noise. So if you have questions, there's a Q&A area within the Zoom webinar panel where you can post questions, and we have a team that'll try to answer those questions as we're going through the webinar, or we can walk through them at the end and answer any questions you have. We'll also provide some contact information, so if you want to follow up or go into a deeper discussion, then we can do that as well. Real quickly, I'm Mike McCarty, CEO, founder of SafeVisitor and Safe Hiring Solutions. We're, my background, I was a violent crime detective with the city of Nashville, Tennessee. We started some community-based violence prevention programs back in the 90s. I left there, started doing consulting work for Department of Defense, Justice, later Homeland Security. Within that, we started getting a lot of questions from public schools looking for solutions for background screening. So I launched Safe Hiring 15 years ago, primarily to help school districts and vet volunteers, vendors, contractors, and even employees in some states. So we've done some 750, 800,000 background checks for schools over the last 15 years. SafeVisitor is a visitor management system, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. I want to introduce today, we're talking about being able to do, thermal camera body temperature scanning. And let me just preface this by saying, a few months ago, as we, COVID-19 hit, it came on very quickly. One of the things that we did for some of our clients, as they started back to work, is be able to add some questions at our kiosk, that depending on how they answered those questions, it would either trigger not allowing them to register, or if they answered those successfully, then they could continue in the process. Well, we realized, as well as most of our school and most of our clients, that somebody can be dishonest in answering those questions. And so we were looking at the thermal camera, everything that was available, and there's a lot out there. We learned very quickly with some of our advisory board members who are deeply knowledgeable in this space that, there's a lot of them out there that are actually blacklisted by the federal government, a lot of them being manufactured in China, so getting access to this. How they do the actual temperature, and I know Phil, when I'll introduce him in just a second, we'll get into this in a little more depth, the accuracy of the information. The other piece to this is we did not want to just sell a device that was singular in its function, meaning it only would do a temperature scan, and then a vaccine comes out in 6 months or 8 months or 12 months, and all of a sudden you have a product that you're going to place on the shelf. So we're always looking at getting the most value from, what we are going to offer to our clients. And so we were introduced to Phil and his team at Invixium. And the thing that became most appealing with this is depth of experience, the fact that the thermal body cam or fever detection is a component within this device that becomes really a multi-use device that we are creating a complete safety authenticator or FastPass Authenticator, which I'll get into in a little more depth after Phil walks through this. So I'm going to kick it over to Phil, let Phil introduce himself. They're a new strategic partner of ours. We're working together to integrate this within our platform on the SafeVisitor side. So Phil, let me send it over to you, my friend.
Cool. Thank you, Mike. Thanks to all of you who are joining today. I appreciate your time. Hope everybody's staying safe and your families are safe, comfortable, happy, and healthy at home. So my name is Phil Jackson. I'm Director of Sales for North America for Invixium. I'm actually from Indiana, which is cool. Safe Hiring is located in Indiana. I live in Dallas currently, but I do cover the whole United States in my role as a director. Without further ado, I'd just like to start by introducing you to our company. So Invixium is a biometric company that's located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Our product has always been made in Toronto. We have about 8 years in business, but where we came from was a company called BioScript, was the predominant, the #1 brand of biometric components or biometric devices in North America before being purchased by a company called Morpho, which is a big French company. But what happened in that process is that Morpho shut down the Toronto office, and the person who was the president of BioScript at the time, Shiraz Kapadia, founded Invixium, brought a lot of the team members from BioScript into Invixium, kept the company headquartered in Toronto. And so we have this vast experience in biometrics. And if you asked me 3 months ago, what does biometrics mean? What does biometrics do? I would have said, of course, you're probably talking about access control biometrics, which is predominantly finger, face, iris, but detecting someone's fever, body temperature, detecting someone's pulse, detecting a bunch of other things about somebody is considered biometrics as well. So it's interesting that we have this huge depth of knowledge in the biometric industry as it's applied to access control, but it really helps us with this new challenge of detecting elevated body temperature and making smart decisions based off of that. In our 8 years of business, we've amassed a pretty wide footprint of partners throughout the globe. Some of our notable end users are companies like National Bank of Egypt, Shell Oil, the government of Saudi Arabia. I have many universities here in the U.S., which I can't really mention by name because of the security level associated with them, that are in various stages of testing and deploying my product. So we really want to become the predominant brand that BioScript was. We want to take that place, and we are well positioned to do it. Definitely, customers come to us every day, and they're just not finding what they need or what they're looking for, even just for an access control biometric product. This video that I'm showing you, this is what traditionally we're extremely good at and what we do. And this is showing you our IXM Titan product, which is the core of our fever detection system. And essentially the idea with IXM Titan from the beginning was this ability to do fast, accurate, efficient face recognition to let people conveniently touchlessly through a door. And I'm playing this video several times so you all get a chance to see it. But now if we use our imaginations a little bit and you just think about, what if this person, in the same process of being authenticated and allowed through the door, if we can check their fever at the exact same time with no delay at all, leveraging the power of the device. And that's, 3 years ago when we released IXM Titan, the philosophy from the beginning was to make a device that wasn't just an access control device, but had the power of a smart IoT endpoint to do multiple things. So just, Titan starts off as being an incredibly powerful access control biometric device, either for convenience or for security. Just some of the more notable aspects are we can do face recognition on face only, so one to N or one to many, if you know anything about biometrics, for up to 100,000 users. But in combination with a card, we can do face recognition for up to 1 million users. So I think we have all the capacity that probably 99% of the market is looking for. Titan uses a 21 megapixel camera, and that is instrumental to doing fever detection. I'll explain why in a few minutes. Very fast processor, and one of the coolest, most remarkable features about Titan is it's actually all aluminum on the outside. So you look, our competitors' products, you look at lots of products in security, whether they're card readers or biometric devices, and they have plastic on the outside, which to better or lesser quality. But our product is manufactured in this all aluminum shell, which just makes it very robust in any environment. IXM Titan comes in a couple different colors, but just further expand on some of the quality features that we build into Titan, because our philosophy as a company, again, when Invixium was founded from that company called BioScript, our philosophy from the beginning was to make products that are that look good, that are elegant, but incorporate best of breed components. So I mentioned the 21 megapixel camera. It is actually a Sony camera, which gives us very good light sensitivity in low light environments, in bright backlight environments, which again is important and is instrumental to this fever detection process as well. We incorporated HID readers so that we can support basically all the card technologies that are out there in the world, whether it's a Proc card or a smart card. Our devices incorporate a nice 4-inch touchscreen, which is very smooth operation with the IPS capacitive screen versus it being like a resistive touchscreen. So very fast, accurate, powerful, smooth operation of that touchscreen, which feeds into what we are partnering with Safe Hiring on, which is to give an option where, you know, their solution and our solution is sort of blended elegantly together. And then that screen is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass. So the Corning Gorilla Glass, I'm sure you know, is the most robust chemically strengthened glass product on the market. Corning invented strengthened glass per se. So we put that on there to make sure that with that and with the all aluminum enclosure on Titan, that this product is just going to last a very, very long time. It's going to stand up to any environment, and hopefully 5, 6, 7, 8 years on, it looks like it's factory new. To further expand, I mentioned that our product is made in Canada. On the right, you can actually see where the circuit boards are made, and that is legitimately in Canada. If any of you guys are in Toronto, or you know, if you ever make a trip to Toronto, we could take you and show you this facility where our circuit boards are made, and then everything is incorporated into a final assembly in Toronto by our own team members, and then put through a 24-hour burn-in process before shipping. Which leads to just the overall quality of the product. So I was asked, you know, what's the warranty, and what's, you know, how does the warranty work? And you know, the answer is we have a very fast repair process, but I've only, in my 3 years of selling this product, I've really only ever had to put like one device through the repair process because it is so well made to begin with. So on to the kind of what we're really here to talk about today, which is the fever detection. So when a fever detection became a topic of conversation way back in February, when there were other products that were starting to come on the market, we thought about, can we do this? Can we do it in a better way than anybody else? How does our existing product set help us do this? And can we give existing customers a pathway of just upgrading their existing devices and not replacing devices to add this new feature of fever detection that everybody's asking for? And our answer to that was to create what we call the Titan Enhancement Kit. Essentially, it's a plug-and-play module that sits behind the Titan device. If you guys already had Titan devices, you could buy this. You could attach this to the Titans you already own, but it also makes it flexible and expandable going forward. As Mike mentioned, you know, hopefully at some point, maybe this crisis is over. Maybe fever detection isn't important anymore, or maybe we can just consider this a permanent part of our lives now. But that part can come off, and in fact, be replaced with various other modules that we plan to add to Titan or make available to Titan over time. The magic of what we do is, if you look at this, this is the thermal camera up here at the top. This is the Titan camera. Now, detecting somebody's body temperature is not a trivial issue. And like Mike alluded to, there's products coming out of China and South Korea and other places in the world that purport to do fever detection. I've seen some of the marketing videos where you're actually able to spoof them using a coffee cup to simulate a fever. And that's exactly the wrong thing. That's exactly what you don't want, because just detecting surface skin temperature of the cheeks or of the forehead can be wildly inaccurate. If somebody comes in from a hot environment, from a cold environment, you can have false positives, you can have false negatives. So what we do is very unique, and it really, really relies on our heritage as a biometric products manufacturer, on our chief biometric scientist, who's world-renowned and spoken in front of the United Nations before on biometrics, to take the 21 megapixel camera, run a very sophisticated algorithm to identify exactly the point on the face where you want to measure the best representative core body temperature. And I'm sure most of you guys have done extensive reading and already know this, but the place that you really want to read that core body temperature is at the canthus or at the tear duct, right? And that's what's going to give you the most accurate, most reliable sense of core body temperature without, without actually resorting to an ear thermometer or something else that is more invasive and slower and such. So we take the 21 megapixel camera, we identify where the tear duct is, we map that onto the data we're getting from the thermal camera, and that's how we know what your body temperature is at the tear duct. So that, again, gives you the most accurate representation of core body temperature. Just so you know, this is an important topic of conversation. I'm not allowed to reveal who our thermal camera manufacturer is, but it is not one of the Chinese manufacturers. In fact, we're very proud that our thermal camera partner is based in Southern California. They manufacture the product in Southern California, and they're great individuals that work there that have come out of the engineering department per se of DoD. So they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They have their own expertise. Unfortunately, their expertise is with the camera part, and they, for a long time, have been trying to figure this out. So the magic of taking their camera and making this very accurate actually exists inside the Titan, which I think they were very impressed that we were able to break the code on that. So the other aspect of Titan, right, is that it's first and foremost, it's meant as an access control device, and that's a cool thing compared to some of these other products in the market. So we can talk about like FLIR cameras. We can talk about some other camera products that are world renowned for very, very good reasons. Like FLIR cameras, I think anybody can honestly say and agree that FLIR cameras would be the most respected thermal camera brand on the market. Unfortunately, as expensive as those solutions are, they're highly dependent on trained operators. So even untrained operators won't be able to get good, reliable readings from them because they are really reliant on the operator. Number two is it's not an automated process. And so what we're bringing is the accuracy of a product like FLIR, but bringing it into an automated process where this can be part of your access control system. In other words, if we detect your body temperature is elevated, we're just not going to unlock a door for you. Or for visitor management, where if we detect you have an elevated body temperature, maybe we don't allow you to go through the rest of the check-in process as a visitor, and we advise you to go back out to your car, call the office of the school or call the receptionist desk of the company you're trying to visit. So we can do a lot of automated things. The one biggest determinant factor of camera accuracy is distance from camera. And so because our device is fundamentally a face recognition device, we are already controlling for that distance. And that process applies whether we're trying to authenticate somebody that's enrolled on face or whether it's somebody that hasn't been enrolled. We're not even trying to recognize on face, but we're just trying to do the thermal detection process. So a visitor that's never been to the facility and we just want to capture their temperature, we can do that on Titan, and Titan is still making adjustments to the user to make sure they're within the appropriate envelope to accurately read body temperature. And like Mike alludes to, we see customers hopping on the bandwagon, buying very expensive devices that have a single use. And what we want to provide is customers products that are going to have a variety of uses over time. It's not something that's going to have to just be thrown away or stored in a closet when it's done, but something that can work for visitor management, access control, time and attendance, intercom capabilities, and many other uses when you ultimately don't need the fever detection. Kind of the last slide I'll show, this is just showing you the different colors that it comes in. Kind of maybe a trivial point, but our devices do come in a couple different colors there. And with that, I'm going to hopefully, Anshuman, if you can kick on your camera and give us a live demo of Titan.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. Oh, I'm getting a message that I cannot start my video because the host has disabled it. So I might need help from Mike over there.
Do you need to share your screen?
Yeah. He actually needs to share video from his camera so he can give us the live demo.
Perfect. There should be a share screen at the bottom of the Zoom panel. You'll see a green share screen button.
No, sorry. So Mike, it's not a share screen. I need to turn on my camera because it's a live demo.
Oh, let's see if we can manage that from here. Stand by.
And guys, I'll just introduce Anshuman really quick. But Anshuman is our marketing manager in Toronto. It's been interesting these times because it's hard for me to get to Toronto. Toronto people can't come down here, so we've been doing these remote demos, and he's able to show you what this actually looks like in process. If we can get that part of it working.
I apologize with all the Zoom security settings they've added. It is not letting me quickly on the fly turn his camera on, and I apologize for that. Maybe we can do a quick recording of that after we wrap up and be able to share that as a link, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll do that for you. So just to wrap up my part of this, I just want to share my screen again. And I want to tell you a little bit about the functionality. I was going to show you that, but we'll talk about it. So a couple of the things that we've built into our product for the purpose of the fever detection is, number one, the ability to just report back to the user once they've presented themselves and tell the user what their absolute temperature is, or tell the user if it is over a defined threshold. The CDC and Johns Hopkins has defined that as 100.4 degrees, but that is user customizable, so you could have a higher or lower threshold. Number two feature, like I mentioned, you would be able to just deny access to somebody. Like if this is also controlling access control, you can just deny access. Of course, in the context of visitor management, we can just, not allow them to go forward with the rest of the visitor management process if they have an elevated body temperature. And then the option of actually displaying to the user that a customizable message, like, I'm sorry you have an elevated body temperature, please return to your car, or I'm sorry you have an elevated body temperature, please dial this number, whatever you would want it to be for your particular process and policy that you've set up. And then lastly, we have the ability to do things like alerting, possibly through safe hiring, SafeVisitor, or, other ways of doing that. So with that, it looks like maybe we have some questions, and I'm glad to answer those now. So I see that Jim Price is asking about average cost, and I will revert to Lauren and Mike on that part of it, but I know that we've talked about costs, and so I'm sure they'll be glad to provide that for you.
Yep, absolutely. Once we wrap up, we will be able to share pricing, and typically we want to, have you fill out a form or contact us or email us, because we want a little bit more information in terms of exactly how you want to deploy this and how many units you're going to deploy, and that factors into the pricing. So Phil, if you don't mind stopping your share, I am going to take
there you go. Over to you, Mike.
Perfect. That was great. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
So what Phil just walked us through, when we first were introduced to the Titan capabilities, and immediately we looked at this as a leadership team and saw that this could be a 360 solution for where we are going. And having said that, I'm going to walk you through the kind of phase one is the integration with the SafeVisitor visitor management system. And we've kind of got a multi-phase development process that we're laying out right now. And so phase one will be exactly what Phil kind of alluded to, managing not only access control, but visitors, volunteers, high frequency visitors that are coming into your facilities. This can be a standalone, does not have to be integrated with the SafeVisitor system. And so that's another question, that we would ask in terms of setting up a proposal in terms of pricing. We have organizations right now, especially in the school market. We work with some of the largest schools in the country, like Hillsborough County Schools in Tampa, Florida, down to single building private or charter schools. We have corporate organizations that are deploying this. I'm going to speak a lot to what's happening in the K-12 or school space. And the reason for that is, one, we have a lot of participants from that, from the K-12. The second part is the use case for K-12 is probably the most complex versus most other organizations. And so I just want to give you a sense of everything that we believe we're going to be able to do with the Titan. One, it can be either a standalone product that you have, and we're looking at with our fabricator, just like with our standalone kiosk, of creating a stand that could ramp up or down. So maybe you're deploying this in an elementary school. We've got schools that are going to use this with students that are coming in. So to be able to move it up or down depending on the size and height of those students. So, you know, as they're coming into school, then maybe later in the day it's used for visitor or access control. We have schools that are going to be deploying this on a bus. The first phase deployment on the bus is really fever detection, wanting to capture that before they ride on a bus in an environment and bring something to the front door, only to find out, oh, I've been on a bus for 10, 20, 30 minutes. Kind of a next phase with the bus module is we have been working with schools to map out a solution to figure out how you can document that the right child getting on the right bus, getting off the bus, and accounting for them. And so the Titan is going to become a central foundational piece that we're going to use on a school bus to be able to manage children coming on the bus, off the bus, and it could capture that temperature as well. Kind of the third phase where we'll go with this is really looking at the voice capabilities within the Titan. So we really want to explore being able to use this as a voice activated FastPass Authenticator. As I approach, the camera senses I'm standing there, could ask a question. Welcome to Sunnyside Elementary. How can I help you? I'm a volunteer. Please scan your 2D barcode. So it walks through that process as a voice, as opposed to, you know, anything that has to be touched on that module. One of the questions that came up last week is you're looking at the facial recognition and what are those implications? Any facial recognition that we have used or explored, the conversation and how you frame that conversation is this is a FastPass Authenticator. We're not doing surveillance. We're not looking to see where you're at in a building. We're creating a profile by which the video showed as an employee, as I walked up, it immediately recognized me, facial recognition, unlocked door, and I keep on moving. And so how this is going to integrate within the SafeVisitor system is you'll be able to manage those temporary visitors, volunteers, contractors, community partners, whomever that is coming into your building will be able to utilize this device. The SafeVisitor system, it's a cloud-based system. Everything's hosted in the Microsoft Azure environment. The deployment here is very simple. And so when somebody comes in, we kind of put you in two lanes. We look at temporary visitors, and this is kind of the lowest frequency for K-12 environment. These are folks that are not volunteers, they're not contractors, they're not student teachers, they're not pre-vetted. These are maybe somebody coming in for a meeting. The system, how it would work today, so if I came up to the Titan, just envision, I'm running this at a front desk, but this would be more what it looks like if we were visualizing how this would work at the Titan. As I come up, I'm going to select I'm a temporary visitor. It's actually going to scan the 2D barcode on my government issued ID. We support all of North America, Canadian, Mexican consulate cards, military. I don't have the hardware set up, so we're going to do it manually. This also illustrates that if somebody comes in with a passport that they can scan into the facility with a passport, pulls all the information off the back of that 2D. The Titan either takes the photo because they've never visited before. Once it takes that photo, then the SafeVisitor system is going to run a background check. So if they were checking in at the device, and it had potential matches like I've got displayed on the screen right here. It's not going to show those at the kiosk. It's going to have a message like waiting on attendant. And so the front office team would then see the information. They would look at this. They would determine if it's the visitor that's in the lobby. If in fact it was, then they can manage communication. I think one of the things that Phil mentioned very briefly and may not have caught, that this device has a intercom built into it, so you can have two-way communication through the device. If there was not this individual or everything came back clear, you can set rules, or we'll be able to set rules that say if we have identified, they've checked in, we want it to print the badge at the device, or we may have a business rule that says we want the badge, temporary badge, printed at the front office team's desk because we want eyeballs on everybody coming into the facility. So those are business rules you can set, more of a fast automation, and that could be set on certain registration types, employees, or certain volunteers based on how you are utilizing your business rules. And because of the different modalities, facial rec or finger vein or fingerprint, you can use two-factor authentication. So if I'm checking in with an HID or a SafeVisitor ID card that I could have passed to somebody else, but if I'm using that second form of authentication, be it face, finger vein, fingerprint, with the two-factor, now I've got 100% accuracy in terms of who's checking in, then maybe I feel more comfortable with creating the complete FastPass, unlocks door, prints badge, and off they go. A couple other components while I'm on this page that I'll mention. If you are using any kind of alert system, we have integrations with many of the alert systems, the Crisis Goes, and different alert systems that are used. And so we can actually take these two buttons and pass them over to an alert system so that now anybody that's denied entry, or if you click an emergency button, gets passed to the alert system, can be managed two-way communication as well as escalated to law enforcement. If everything's okay, they've done the quick 2-second fever detection, ran the background check. Let's say it comes back clear. They're not on excluded parties list. They're not on a sex offender list. Nothing's changed in their profile. Then they would enter who they're visiting and the reason. This is coming out next month as drop-down menus. And so you would be able to set or preset reasons that a visitor would come into your school or facility, and you would be able to preset reasons for volunteers or other registration types, say a community partner. And so not only would you be able to preset those reasons, which then makes the reporting standardized on the back end, reporting volunteer hours or community partner hours, you will also be able to attach to each one of those selections a time period for which they can be in your building. So if somebody selected they were a visitor and they were coming in for lunch, maybe that's a 60-minute or a 30-minute or a 45-minute selection. At the end of that period, if they overstay their visit, then there's another tab on the dashboard that's created that highlights, and it would indicate that you have a visitor in the building that's overstayed their visit. So once I enter this information, it would allow me to print a badge. You have the ability to print either a generic, a fixed badge, or we have time-sensitive badges. So after about 6 hours, a void comes across the badge. And so if they tried to re-enter your facility the next day with a badge that was issued temporarily today, they would not be able to enter the building with that particular badge. Some of the other components, you have the ability for them to pre-register. So think in terms in the K-12 environment, you have Grandparents' Day, Veterans' Day, Halloween parties, these events where you have lots of visitors coming into a facility. You have a link that's going to be pushed out in your communication. You can ask them to pre-register. They go through a process of pre-registering. We're adding remote ID validation, which means they will scan the front and back of their government-issued ID with a mobile device, parses the data on the government-issued ID, can take a selfie, compare it to the government ID. So we're validating them remotely before they ever arrive on premise. Once they pre-register, they're setting in a queue on the dashboard for the day that they visit. So under this visitors arriving soon, you can see if I work in the front office or I'm an administrator, when I log in each day, I can see who's coming into a building or across our entire campus. If I work in building A, I can only see my building, and it's going to show me any pre-registered visitors. And this would be one that I would want to take a quick look at because I can see that they failed some part of the background check. So before they arrive on campus, I want the ability to be able to communicate with them. So I can click on this. This quickly tells me that in this example, Isaac is on our exclusion party list. He's not allowed on campus for violent or threatening behavior. And so now I can communicate with Isaac before he ever arrives on campus. So it's not an awkward conversation, but he knows he's not allowed to visit. So you've got also this tab is visitors nearby. You have the ability to manage this with geofencing. So your high frequency visitors, once they're approved, they are issued a mobile app. And so the SafeVisitor mobile app, once that's downloaded and activated for approved profiles, then as they approach the building, if we geofence each of your buildings, as soon as they cross that geofence, if they have location services activated on their phone, it would send their information to the dashboard even before they ever entered the vestibule to be able to check in. You have a student pickup and drop off. We integrate with the all the student information systems. This can be managed on the dashboard as well. So this would manage late arrival or early dismissal. So if I was going to pick up a student early for a dental appointment, we enter the student's name, and then it queries the student information system. In this example, it would show that Roy and Lily are approved, and Herminia is not allowed to pick up this student, so it would not allow you to select that particular person. And then, you know, it would walk through the process of documenting and creating a log in the student log within SafeVisitor. This also, I want to show you on the high frequency. Whoops, I went ahead. Whoops, my bad. You've got two options of managing your high frequency visitors. We have what is called a short application, which is this particular module. You could select I'm a volunteer. It takes you to the next step. You have a volunteer quick application or policy statement. You can link them to documents, or you can link them to videos that you require them to watch. There is also a full-blown volunteer management system. We created this for Hillsborough County Schools in Tampa, Florida. So this allows you to create a custom application based on different registration types and the information required for each one of those lanes that you need to collect and document. So there's two ways of kind of navigating those high frequency visitors and the process by which you bring them into your system. We're going to walk through the quick application. That's a policy statement. Now I'm electronically signing for the background check. Depending on where you're at or what process you use for background checks, we can create an integrated background check solution. So our largest client has 50,000 volunteers. As they complete all of this information, it automatically pushes that over to our background check software, runs a national background check, and then it would post back into their system under a registration. Under these registrations, you can set a couple rules. Rule one, which is probably 99% of our organizations that manages volunteers or high frequency visitors, they want this to be automated. And what I mean by that is if this record comes back after the background check, if there's no criminal history, then they want them to be auto-approved. It communicates with them that they've been auto-approved. And then they have the ability to take their profile, download the mobile app, activate it. In the future, we'll be able to communicate through the mobile app. If you have renewal requirements, you want them to update their profile annually, they have to complete a background check annually. They'll be able to get push notifications within the mobile app to upgrade their background check or their profile or any information that needs to be updated in the system. The only profiles that have to be managed now are those that have a criminal history, and we flag them as a red triangle. So now think in terms of those 50,000 volunteers for our largest client. If roughly 10% have a criminal history, they went from managing 50,000 profiles and looking at every one of those to now only having to review 5,000. And so a team can manage this, and a much smaller team. We link to the report so they can open up the profile, they can click on this link, they can pull up the background screening report based on that criminal history. Then the team responsible for managing this approves, or you can deny and exclude them based on that screening report. One of the other solutions that was deployed about a year ago is once they are approved as a high frequency visitor, you have the option of adopting what is called a rest alert. And a rest alert, we have integrated with about 90% of the jails and booking institutions across the United States. So for as little as $1.50 a year per profile, say per volunteer, you can get real-time notifications if they're arrested anywhere in the United States. What happens when they're arrested is it immediately moves them to an under review category, so they can no longer scan into your buildings or on your campus. It triggers an alert to the team that manages your background checks that, hey, John Doe was arrested. They can log in, click on this. They can see the arrest data, initiate an investigation, and based on that investigation, the team has to manually reapprove them, or you can permanently deny them based on your investigation. So that particular solution, I know for a lot of schools that are doing annual background checks or paying for, expensive background checks every 2 or 3 years, a lot of them are doing one background check, onboarding the new profiles or volunteers, and then using a rest alert that's not really necessary to come back and run a full-blown background check every 2 or 3 years, because you have continuous alerts built into the process. You manage your exclusion list. So as Phil alluded, somebody that comes up to the device as they check in, if there is, an elevated temperature, it's not going to allow them to check in. If they're on some kind of exclusion list, we also check them against national sex offender every time any classification of a visitor checks into the system. If anything has changed in their profile, then it would not allow them to check into the system, would send a notification to the front office team. You can manage the exclusions on your end in the software. You can manage those globally. They're not allowed on your campus or in individual buildings. They're not allowed in a single building for some reason. Or if it's restricted access, they're allowed, but they have some kind of restriction. Whatever you type here will be displayed to the front office team when they attempt to log into the system, so that whatever restricted access should be applied to this particular visitor. We have this visitor nearby log. This is with the geofencing. If you're using geofence, we create a log every time somebody crosses that geofence, regardless of whether they enter the facility or not. We keep the student pickup logs. So you got pickup and drop off logs. So every day, if you had some kind of event and you had to, evacuate a building, the logs within SafeVisitor are going to be accurate every day based on managing that student check-in, check-out process. Plus, it will update with the student information system, but you'll have an updated log within the SafeVisitor system. And then we have a safe vendor component, which is allowing vendors that are certified that they can scan into any facility that's running the SafeVisitor system. Couple things that coming out over the next couple weeks: single sign-on. So being able to manage employees and access through a single sign-on system. But that is a high-level overview of the SafeVisitor system. And with that, using and integrating that within the capabilities of the Titan to become really our FastPass Authenticator, where you can manage employees, you can manage students, visitors, volunteers, contractors, any classification that you want to manage within that one device. Very small footprint. You know, some of our custom made kiosks that are standalone can be rather large and take up quite a bit of space within that vestibule or entryway. These are going to have a very small footprint. I know one school in the Chicago area that's going through a process to potentially purchase and use these almost as a handheld device on a bus to start the next school year. And they are doing it primarily just for the fever detection, and then knowing we're moving into a bus module in the future. I think one thing Phil, I don't think mentioned is that this device has kind of 4G capabilities, and so the ability to use Wi-Fi, hardwired, or that cellular access will allow us to use these in remote locations, like on a bus, or a superintendent asked this morning about, you know, being able to take it out to a football field or field days, or, you know, where you're checking in visitors at a remote location outside a structural building. And this would allow for that to happen. All right, I am going to pause there for a second, and I'm going to see if we have any questions. Yes, it was asked if we recorded the session. We absolutely did, and we will send out a link to that. So if you have other team members or anybody that wants to review this webinar, that will be available by tomorrow.
Hey, Mike, this is Phil Jackson.
Yes.
Anshuman sent me the video. Well,
perfect.
So I can actually go ahead and show you the live demo that we would have done a few minutes ago if you'd like.
The screen is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so what you're seeing here, this is actually a Titan that's mounted with the enhancement kit. You see the Titan camera at the top and the thermal camera above that that's part of the enhancement kit. Anshuman's going through some settings here. Let me back up to the very beginning and what you'll see here. So this is the way the device operates. You walk up to it just as quickly as it would authenticate you on face or recognize you by face. It's going to check the temperature at the same time. I think we have a little bit of tweaking to do because the very first read always seems to be a little off from subsequent reads. But and then what he's doing now is actually changing the threshold so that we can simulate what it is if you had an elevated temperature. And for now, just as our product is now, and we're even going to be tweaking this on our side before release, but here we're just showing the sort of the default thing that says, oh, I'm sorry, you have an elevated body temperature. But like I said before, that would be a custom message, customized potentially even for any of you that want a different message. And then what Anshuman is showing here is our software backend. So there was a question about whether all this data could be recorded. And the answer is absolutely. Definitely, we've designed the product so that every temperature reading can be stored in conjunction with the user record. I think we don't know very well how this harmonizes with, you know, HIPAA and other things, but it sounds like in some jurisdictions that's going to be absolutely required. So that is possible on the back end, not just in our software, but I believe that will also be possible through our integration with SafeVisitor to have that look back and see what people's temperatures were at a given time. And just because that was so quick, I'm going to start at the beginning and let you see it one more time. And as soon as he's done here, I'll turn it back over to Mike, and we can keep answering whatever other questions you have for me, or of course for safe firing. There we go. Back over to you, Mike.
Perfect. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate you guys pulling that together really quickly since Zoom didn't cooperate. Again, want to thank everybody for joining. Please feel free to reach out directly for more information, for pricing, for discussions about how you potentially would want to deploy this. And we can put together very quickly pricing proposals and talk through, exactly what you're looking for and how you want to deploy and what you need. Thanks again. Hope you have a great day. We look forward to speaking with you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, guys.